ironically, yes. Ironically, I gained a few pounds by stealing Grace Park's pregnancy belly and sticking it up my jumper. So, in a manner of speaking, I did get pregnant for about 6 episodes. No, it was one of those crazy things. When that year jump happened, we were all sat around the table, we were all doing this read-through, and I remember Katee had turned into what Michael calls a fishwife and was married to Truco down on the planet, and it was grim. Eddie, what happened to Eddie? Nothing.
Mustache.
Oh, mustache.
It was smoking a lot of pot with me.
That's right, mustache. Anyway, everybody had a little shtick, had something that had shifted, and I'd gotten married as well, but in the script the only thing that I had was a pair of glasses. And I felt a little shortchanged. So it was Reimer who said, oh, why don't we make Lee fat? You know, because... What was that? He said, why don't we make Lee fat? What? You have to speak when I'm not speaking. That's how conversation works. Over. Your turn. Jack. What about... He was fat too, yes. He was fat like Jamie. Michael was saying, you know, guys who get married, they settle down and they just start eating more and not going to the gym so much. And everyone looked around and looked at Ron, and because before that we've been talking about the idea of a fight club, and he's turned into this nasty fighter, and he's bored and he's fighting other people in his ship. That didn't go very far, but it was resurfaced in that episode with the boxing. And I was all for it, and they did a makeup test, and that was the funnest thing I'd ever seen, watching your face suddenly, you know, become like Eddie Murphy and Nutty Professor. And then going to the craft services table and watching the double takes while the crew members who saw you 3 hours before suddenly couldn't work out what had happened to you over lunch.
Didn't you actually start eating a bit more and not going to the gym though?
I definitely took the edge off going to the gym thing. And what's the point in that? What's the point in like staying in shape just so you go to work?
I think everyone was jealous. I'm dying to play a pregnant person so I can actually eat.
And it was a lot of fun. It was a ball ache when you actually had to do scenes, because you know you could tilt your head 1 degree that way and suddenly the prosthetic was slightly more visible. So it was like being in a bit of a straitjacket, but it was great fun because you know it's just very rare that you get to do that. The questioner is absolutely right. You know, on a show, on a TV show, they don't often like to change some character that works and that, you know, fulfills a certain demographic within the show, shall we say. They don't want to shift that around too much. But luckily, Michael Truco was there.
I was going to say, they made Jamie chubby and brought in Michael. They were like, so Michael, you're going to be in for more than 13 episodes now.
Let Jamie go at it. But it was great fun. I enjoyed it very much. And, you know, they're some of my fondest episodes, those episodes. That was the beauty of the show. We never had to really do the same thing ad infinitum, same episode every week. We got to do this crazy thing where we tried things, and you know, the writers were very bold and brave. But yeah, Grace Park's pregnancy prosthetic belly was mine for a few episodes. I don't think she ever needed it again, actually. So
No.
I think I should still keep it.
So this is an open question. Was there any conflict between the science you all were conveying and the characters, you feeling like that wouldn't be something you would say on screen?
I think he said it.
Just general, yeah.
The word science was in there.
I heard science.
That's not us.
Was there a conflict between what?
Between the science you were trying to convey in the show to make sure that it felt grounded and maybe trying to force the characters to say something that felt out of character.
Well, no, you know, we had awesome writers in the show. I can't say highly enough for them. There's to be highly enough for them. So that, you know, generally what I received as far as dialogue was fine. But, you know, when I gave advice, I would give, you know, based on the character. If Ty says something that's wrong, so what? You know, if Ty says something that isn't quite right, you would expect that. So there's times when I look at, you know, Ty's dialogue and say, you know, this is fine. And so yes, you do take into account who's saying what, but there I don't think there's ever time that I recall where I said this person wouldn't say that, because that's probably not my purview.
There were a couple times where we had lines that we didn't like. Like there was a scene with Jamie and I where I didn't like the lines, and so I acted as horribly as I could so they would cut the scene. And they did. I mean, don't you remember that? I was like, they wouldn't cut it.
I can't remember which scene it was, but yeah, I do
we
remember.
were hiding from the silence behind on the spaceship. On the spaceship. I'm such an ass. On Galactica, where they keep the hangars of all the planes.
In the space show that we did together?
Liam and I were hiding behind this thing, and they wouldn't cut the dialogue, and I thought it was so bad in this one scene, so I acted as bad as I could, and they cut it.
Which was still very good, by the way.
No, it wasn't.
But no, it wasn't about science, though, was it really?
No, it wasn't about science. It was just a line.
Yeah. Because I suppose you have to accept that these people would have been quite comfortable talking about science, most
Right,
of them.
yeah.
You know, to some degree. They're in a technical world.
Right. And then at the very end, when they wanted me to say, when Eddie, or when Mary's character says, "Where are we, Starbuck?" and I was supposed to say, "Somewhere all along the watchtower." And I was like, and Mary's laughing, she's pissing herself. She goes, "I bet you $100 you can't say that once and make it sound good." And I was like, okay. So we did it the first time, and it was actually really good. And she was like, okay, do it again. And I lost miserably because I would just go, "Starbuck, where are we?" I physically couldn't say it again because I kept laughing, and it was pretty bad. So that got cut, obviously.
Something to look for, speaking of tech, is in the episode Hand of God, first season, episode 10, there's one part where Katee says radar instead of Dratus. And we have no idea how that worked its way into the dialogue. But to this day, Bradley Thompson chews on that one word. He wrote pages and pages of awesome dialogue with the one word, no, radar.
I'm sure that I just screwed up.
I'm sure it said Dratus.
Right?
It said Dratus and you said radar.
It said Dratus, and I just said radar because I messed up. And they were like, "Katee, that's not right." And I was like, "It's a TV show." I'm sure it was something like that. And then I got hate mail. From Kevin. Damn her! Here goes me, Andy!
I didn't even notice. Talk to Bradley.
We only have time for one more question, so let's make it a good one.
No pressure. No pressure.
This is a question for Michael. I was just always wondering when your character took the balloon and then you basically played the plugged-in character, how you as an actor perceived your character perceiving you.
How was the last part? How I perceived myself perceiving?
How is it that you thought your character perceived the world as a kind of plugged-in character?
Oh, wow. That's
It's a fantastic
esoteric
last
question.
question.
I can tell you from the point of view as the actor, that whole sequence resonated with me very strongly in that time frame right before we shot that. We actually were on hiatus for a writer's strike, and during that sequence I was in a car accident and I broke my neck and was in a neck brace for 4 months, and it coincided perfectly with the writer's strike, which was just a stroke of dumb luck. And when I came back to work, the producers were extraordinarily fragile with how they handled me, literally physically. They didn't know what to do with me because I've got hardware in my neck, I've got titanium rods, and this just happened. I just come out of the neck brace, and so they said, well, okay, we'll put him in a bed. You know, just lay him out. And so we did that sequence where I got shot, and then, of course, it evolved into what it became, and it resonated with me. It was very difficult in some of those scenes to be back in a hospital bed with all that gear and all those tubes and wires, and the circumstances were very realistic for me. And I thought that the evolution of Anders into this hybrid was, at first I thought it was just what I explained. It was just a deflection. It was just a way to, write the character or something. But, man, they say you make lemonade, right? So I sort of embraced it because it was difficult to play in the beginning. There was just mountains of dialogue, and there was episodes where even Eddie was directing, and he said, dude, we can just tape the shit on the ceiling. Don't worry about it. Just keep talking. I don't care what you say. You can say anything you want. And so I just started rambling. And first, you know, you take something that's very technical like that, and I decided to embrace it. So I tried to give that deeper meaning in it. For me, it really set off my favorite moment for me personally in the show was that scene between Katee and I at the tub when we say goodbye. And I say, I'll see you on the other side. Everything that I did for those 6 weeks that I was in that tub and in that goo and in that bald cap and in that bed and in this near catatonic state was leading up to that one moment where you say goodbye, and I thought was an actually very hopeful, optimistic moment when I said, I'll see you on the other side. And it still is, to this day, my favorite moment for the show for me.
It's my favorite moment too, and I think that it was a really hard, when Trico got hurt, it was a really kind of, when he got shot and I had to catch him, I was so scared I was going to hurt his neck again, that I mean, it was this moment where he was like, I think he was like, it's fine, it's stronger than yours, just grab me. And I was like, I'm going to break him again. And then at the very end, when he was laying in that bed, it was so hard for people that were kind of like not even around when it happened, but just the phone call. The phone call of, you know, Michael's broken his neck. It was just this moment where it was like, holy shit. And all you had to do at the very end in that scene, it was so profound to me because it was just like, it was like all of a sudden I started crying at the very end because I was thinking about everything that had happened in your life in the last 6 months. And it was just incredibly heartbreaking, but so powerfully, like, optimistic about, like, you could go through something so terrible and actually be stronger. And it was such a beautiful thing, but it was really hard, that stuff, even for the people around Michael, because it wasn't just that they put this actor in a bed because they put him in a bed. They physically did because they didn't know he was going to be able to walk or not.
Right.
So it was really scary.
Yeah. And we just brought this panel way down. So everybody's just like,
I'll bring it back up because I wanted to hang on his little thing, his little neck brace. I thought he had a halo on, and it was really just a brace, and I thought he was going to have one of those things. And so when I talked to him after he got out of I talked to him when I think you were in the hospital, and I was like, can I come hang Christmas lights?
yeah. Decorate me like a tree.
I was really disappointed when he didn't have the halo.
Yes, exactly.
So this accident happened right after the writers told you that you would be a Cylon. And then they tell you you're going into a bed to be half Cylon and driving a ship.
What kind of car does Ron Moore drive?
What you don't know is when he was flying out of the
Black
car in the
SUV.
car accident, he was like, wee, I'm a Cylon!
No, Michael, take the seatbelt off. You're not going to be that.
Your neck is broken, doesn't matter!
Relax. It's just a Sunday drive. That seatbelt doesn't work anyway.
And the writers were on strike at the time. So miserable. With lots of time on their hands, I'm just saying.
Sadly, we are out of time. Please join me